Amina's hands were shaking as she pushed through the festival crowd, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Behind her, somewhere in the maze of Dandam's dusty streets, Madame Zainab was probably still screaming her name. But Amina couldn't stop.
Not now.
Not when everything she had ever dreamed of was happening in the center of Unity Square, and she wasn't there to see it. The sun hammered down on her head as she ran, her worn sandals slapping against the red earth. Sweat poured down her face, mixing with tears she hadn't realized she was crying. Her aunt had sent her on that errand deliberately.
She knew that now.
The timing had been too perfect, the instructions too urgent. Go to Kuali Town. Buy those specific materials. Don't come back until evening. It was all a trap to keep her away from the festival, away from the one chance that could change everything. But Mrs. Rahila had texted her. Just 3 words.
Come now. Hurry.
When Amina finally burst into Unity Square, she stopped so suddenly that someone behind her nearly crashed into her back. The festival ground had been transformed. Colorful canopies stretched across the space like giant butterflies. Tables lined the perimeter, each one displaying crafts that made her heart both soar and sink. These people were talented. Really talented. And somewhere in this crowd was Safia, her cousin, representing Madame Zainab's household with whatever rushed pieces they had cobbled together in the past month. Before you continue watching, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this story ends. Amina scanned the crowd desperately, looking for Mrs. Rahila's gray hijab among the sea of people. Judges moved between the tables, their clipboards catching the sunlight. A microphone squealed somewhere near the main stage. Her chest felt tight. Maybe she was too late. Maybe everything was already decided. Maybe running here had been pointless. Then she saw her. Mrs. Rahila stood near a table in the center section, and even from this distance, Amina could see the smile on her face. The kind of smile that meant something good. Something impossible. The old teacher turned, spotted Amina, and waved both arms over her head like she was flagging down a rescue plane. Amina moved through the crowd, as if underwater. Everything became slow and distant. She heard sounds but couldn't process them. The world narrowed to just that table, just that smile, just the familiar shape of the cloth bag sitting on the display surface. Her bag. The one she had hidden in Mrs. Rahila's storeroom. When she reached the table, she couldn't speak. Mrs. Rahila grabbed both her hands and squeezed so hard it hurt. I registered you, the teacher said, her voice breaking with emotion. I used my savings to pay the entry fee. I brought everything. Amina, they love it. The judges, the buyers, everyone. They keep coming back to look. Amina stared at the table. Her work was laid out like treasures in a museum. The beaded necklaces she had woven from discarded materials caught the light and threw tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. The leather bags she had stitched during countless midnight hours sat propped up like proud soldiers. The wire sculptures she had twisted into the shapes of dancing women seemed to move in the slight breeze. And in the center, the piece she had worked on for 3 months straight, the one she called Silent Scream, stood on a wooden base Mrs. Rahila must have added. It was a face made entirely from broken bangles, shattered mirror pieces, and twisted copper wire. The expression was agony and defiance all at once. It was how she felt every day in Madame Zainab's house. I can't believe you did this, Amina whispered. Her throat felt like it was closing. I can't believe you spent your money on me. Money comes back, Mrs. Rahila said firmly. Talent like yours doesn't. Now stand here. Stand proud. The final judging happens in 30 minutes. That was when Amina heard the scream. It came from the left side of the square, high and sharp and full of fury. Amina knew that voice better than her own heartbeat. She had heard it shout at her for 5 years. She had heard it curse her dreams and mock her hopes and tell her again and again that she was nothing, would always be nothing. Madame Zainab came through the crowd like a storm given human form. People scattered out of her way. Her wrapper was askew, her hijab sliding back on her head, her face twisted with rage. Behind her, struggling to keep up, Safia followed with wide, frightened eyes. You. Madame Zainab's finger shot out like a weapon, pointing directly at Amina. You disobedient, ungrateful snake. The noise in the immediate area died. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. A judge near the jewelry section paused with his pen hovering over his clipboard. Mrs. Rahila stepped forward, placing herself between Amina and the advancing woman. Madame Zainab, this is not the place. Get out of my way, Rahila. Madame Zainab's eyes were wild. This girl is my responsibility. She lives under my roof. She eats my food. And she dares to disobey me? I sent her to Kuali Town. I gave her clear instructions. But she runs here to embarrass me. Embarrass you? Mrs. Rahila's voice went cold in a way Amina had never heard before. Is that what you think this is about? She is making me look like a fool, Madame Zainab shouted. My daughter is competing here. My family name is on display. And this house girl thinks she can just enter the same festival? Like she's equal to us. The word house girl hit Amina like a slap. It wasn't true. Madame Zainab had never paid her a salary, never given her a day off, never treated her like an employee with rights. But in this moment, in front of all these people, she was being reduced to that. Something less than family. Something less than human. Amina found her voice. It came out smaller than she wanted, but it came. I'm your niece. Your brother's daughter. And that is the only reason I tolerated you for so long. Madame Zainab turned to face her fully now, and Amina saw something in her aunt's eyes that made her stomach drop. It wasn't just anger. It was hatred. Pure and old and deep. You think I don't know what you've been doing? Sneaking around, wasting time on this rubbish instead of focusing on real work? You think I'm stupid? You destroyed my work, Amina said, and suddenly she didn't care about the crowd anymore. All the words she had swallowed for 5 years started rising up her throat like floodwater. You cut up everything I made. You told me I was useless. You made me work from dawn until midnight. You took me from my parents and turned me into your servant. And when I finally found something that makes me feel alive, you tried to kill that too. Because it needed to die. Madame Zainab screamed. The veins in her neck stood out like ropes. You were wasting your life on fantasies. I was trying to teach you discipline. I was trying to make you useful. By breaking me? By making you realistic. A voice cut through the tension like a knife. Is there a problem here? One of the judges had approached. He was an older man with gray at his temples, wearing a traditional ibada and carrying his clipboard like a shield. 2 other judges flanked him, along with what looked like a festival coordinator. Madame Zainab immediately changed. Her voice went smooth, almost sweet. No problem, sir. Just a family matter. This girl is my niece. She entered this competition without permission, and I'm simply explaining to her that she needs to withdraw. Withdraw. The judge looked confused. He glanced at the table, at Amina's work, then back at Madame Zainab. But why would she withdraw? Her work is extraordinary. The words hung in the air. Safia, who had been standing silently behind her mother, made a small sound, almost like a whimper. Extraordinary? Madame Zainab repeated the word like it tasted bad. Sir, with all respect, you haven't seen my daughter's work yet. She's the one with real training, real materials. This girl just collected rubbish and glued it together. The judge's expression changed. Something hard entered his eyes. Madam, I have been judging craft competitions for 15 years. I know the difference between rubbish and art. He turned to Amina. Young lady, is this your work? Amina nodded. Her voice came out as a whisper. Yes, sir. All of it? You designed and created everything on this table? Yes, sir. From what materials? Discarded things mostly. Wire, broken bangles, leather scraps, beads from old jewelry, fabric remnants, bottle caps, anything I could find. The judge picked up Silent Scream, turning it slowly in his hands. The broken mirror pieces caught the light and scattered it across his face. This is not rubbish, he said quietly. This is vision. This is what we've been looking for all day. Madame Zainab's face went gray. You can't be serious. I am completely serious. The judge set the sculpture down carefully and made a note on his clipboard. In fact, unless I'm very much mistaken, this young woman is about to win this entire festival. The square went silent. Then it erupted. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think Madam Zainab will do next. And don't forget to hit that like button if you're rooting for Amina. Somewhere in the crowd, someone started clapping. Then another person joined. Then another. Within seconds, applause was rolling across Unity Square like thunder. People who had been browsing other tables started moving toward Amina's display. Buyers pulled out their phones, taking pictures. A woman in an expensive-looking wrapper pushed through and grabbed one of the beaded necklaces, examining it closely. "How much for this?" she demanded. Amina couldn't form words. Mrs. Rahila jumped in. "They're not for sale yet. Festival rules. But after the judging." "I'll pay triple whatever you're asking," the woman said firmly. "I own 3 boutiques in Abuja. I want everything you can make." More buyers crowded around. Voices overlapped. "How much? Where can we reach you? Do you do custom orders? Can you create pieces for my store? I need 20 of these by next month." Through it all, Madam Zainab stood frozen. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. She looked like someone had reached into her chest and torn out something vital. Safia touched her mother's arm. "Mama, let's go."
No.
Madam Zainab shook her head slowly, mechanically. "No, this isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to happen." "Mama, please." Safia's voice broke. "Everyone is looking." And everyone was. The attention had shifted completely. Madam Zainab, who had entered the square like a force of nature, now stood exposed and small. The other festival participants watched with a mixture of pity and schadenfreude. Some of them probably knew the family. Probably knew how Madam Zainab treated her niece. Small towns kept no secrets. The head judge cleared his throat. "Madam, I think it's best if you step back. We have judging to complete." "You're making a mistake," Madam Zainab said, but her voice had lost its power. "She's uneducated, unsophisticated. She doesn't understand business or marketing or any of the things needed to succeed. She understands art," the judge replied coldly. "And that's what we're judging here. Now please move aside." For a long moment, Madam Zainab didn't move. She stared at Amina with an expression that made Amina's skin crawl. It was the look of someone watching their entire worldview collapse. Everything she had believed, the hierarchy she had built her life around, the superiority she had claimed, it was all crumbling in front of a crowd of witnesses. Finally, she turned and walked away. Her back was rigid, her steps mechanical. Safia followed, her head down, and Amina saw tears on her cousin's face. That surprised her. She had expected anger or resentment, not sadness. The judging took another hour, but Amina knew. She could feel it in the way the judges kept returning to her table, in the way buyers lingered even after being told nothing was for sale yet, in the way Mrs. Rahila kept squeezing her hand and whispering prayers of gratitude. When they finally called all the participants to the main stage, Amina's legs felt like water. Mrs. Rahila had to practically hold her up as they made their way through the crowd. The other finalists stood in a line, their faces tight with hope and nervousness. Safia was among them, standing at the far end, her eyes fixed on the ground. The master of ceremonies took the microphone. "This year's Unity Craft Festival has shown us incredible talent from across the region. Our judges had a difficult decision to make. But in the end, one artist stood out not just for technical skill, but for vision, innovation, and the ability to transform ordinary materials into extraordinary statements." Amina's heart was beating so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The winner of this year's festival, receiving a full workshop setup, 6 months of free materials, 20,000 naira in cash, and a plot of land for a permanent studio, is Miss Amina Lawal. The world exploded into noise and light and sensation. Amina felt Mrs. Rahila grab her, felt herself being pushed forward, felt her feet moving without her conscious direction. People were screaming and clapping and shouting her name. Cameras flashed. The judges shook her hand. Someone placed a sash across her chest. A trophy appeared in her hands, heavy and real and solid. She stood on that stage, holding proof that she was not useless, that her hands created value, that her dreams were not fantasies. Below her, the crowd cheered. Buyers waved their business cards. A local reporter pushed forward with a camera. And at the very edge of the square, barely visible through the celebration, Madame Zainab stood watching. Her face was a mask of stone. Beside her, Safia was crying openly now, and Amina couldn't tell if the tears were for her mother's humiliation or for something else entirely. The celebration lasted until sunset. By the time Amina finally left Unity Square, her phone was full of contacts from buyers and gallery owners, her bag stuffed with business cards and contracts that Mrs. Rahila promised to help her review. The trophy felt heavy in her arms. The sash kept sliding off her shoulder. She was exhausted and exhilarated and terrified all at once. Mrs. Rahila walked beside her, practically glowing with pride. "You did it," she kept saying. "You actually did it." "We did it," Amina corrected. "If you hadn't registered me, if you hadn't brought my work, none of this would have happened. I just opened the door. You're the one who walked through it." They were still talking when they turned onto the street leading to Madame Zainab's compound. Amina stopped walking. "I have to go back there tonight," she said quietly. "I have to face her." Mrs. Rahila's expression grew serious. "You don't have to. You can stay with me. You're 18 now, legally an adult. She has no claim on you. All my things are there. My documents. My phone charger. Everything. We'll get them tomorrow. Bring witnesses. Make it official. But tonight, Amina, I don't think it's safe for you to go back there alone. I'll be fine. She can't hurt me anymore. Not after today." But Amina was wrong. She realized at the moment. She pushed open the compound gate and saw Madame Zainab sitting on the veranda, waiting in the darkness. No lights were on in the house. The compound was silent except for the sound of crickets and distant generators humming in neighboring houses. "So you came back," Madame Zainab said. Her voice was flat, empty of emotion. Somehow that was more frightening than her earlier rage. "I came to get my things," Amina replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll be out of your house tonight." "Out of my house." Madame Zainab stood up slowly. "After 5 years of eating my food, sleeping under my roof, using my electricity, my water, my everything, you think you can just walk away? You said I was your burden. You said I was useless. Well, now I don't have to be your burden anymore. I can take care of myself." "With what? That toy trophy? That useless land they promised you? You think those buyers will remember you tomorrow? You think this fantasy will last?" "It's not a fantasy. I have contracts, real offers, from people who will forget your name by next week." Madame Zainab descended the veranda steps. "You are a child playing dress-up. You embarrassed me today in front of the entire town. Made me look like I don't know how to manage my own household. Made people whisper that I'm a wicked aunt who suppresses talent." "You are a wicked aunt who suppresses talent," Amina said, and the words came out louder than she intended. "You destroyed my work. You called me useless every single day. You worked me like an animal and never once said thank you, or well done, or I'm proud of you. You tried to kill everything good in me because you couldn't stand seeing me shine. I tried to save you from disappointment." Madame Zainab's voice rose. "I tried to teach you that the world doesn't care about pretty trinkets and artistic dreams. I tried to make you practical, to give you skills that would actually help you survive. But you were too stubborn, too proud, too stupid to see that I was helping you." "Helping me?" Amina felt something break inside her chest. 5 years of swallowed words came pouring out. "You helped yourself. You got free labor, someone to cook and clean and run your errands while you paid me nothing. You took me from my parents and turned me into your servant. And when I found one thing, just one thing that made me feel human again, you tried to destroy it. Not because you cared about my future, because you couldn't stand seeing me happy." Madame Zainab moved so fast Amina barely saw her coming. Her hand connected with Amina's face with a crack that echoed across the compound. Amina stumbled backward, her cheek exploding with pain, the trophy slipping from her arms and hitting the ground with a clang. "You will not speak to me that way," Madame Zainab hissed. "I don't care what trophy you won or what promises those fools made you. In this house, I am still in charge. In this house, you are still nothing." Amina touched her face. Her fingers came away wet, but she wasn't sure if it was blood or tears. She looked at her aunt, really looked at her, and for the first time she saw past the anger to what lay beneath.
Fear.
Madame Zainab was afraid. Afraid that if Amina succeeded, it would expose how wrong she had been. Afraid that people would judge her for how she had treated her niece. Afraid that her own daughter, who had always had everything handed to her, would be overshadowed by the girl they all thought was worthless. "I'm leaving," Amina said quietly. "Tonight.
Right now.
You can keep everything. My clothes, my documents, all of it. I don't need anything from this house anymore." She bent down, picked up the trophy, and turned toward the gate. "If you walk out of here," Madame Zainab called after her, "you are dead to me.
Dead to this family.
I will tell your parents you disrespected me. I will tell everyone in Dandom that you are ungrateful and disobedient. I will make sure no one helps you." Amina stopped walking. For a moment, she stood there in the darkness, holding her trophy, her face throbbing, her future uncertain. Then she turned around and looked at the woman who had tried so hard to break her. "You already told everyone I was useless," she said. "And today, they all saw you were wrong. So tell them whatever you want, Auntie. Tell them I'm ungrateful. Tell them I'm disobedient. Tell them I'm dead to you. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm alive to myself. And that's enough." She walked out of the compound and didn't look back. If you're still watching, make sure you're subscribed because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. Mrs. Rahila's house was dark when Amina arrived, but the teacher opened the door immediately when Amina knocked, as if she had been waiting. She took one look at Amina's face and pulled her inside without a word. In the kitchen, she cleaned the cut on Amina's cheek with warm water and antiseptic that stung like fire. Amina didn't cry. She was done crying. "Stay as long as you need," Mrs. Rahila said. "This is your home now." Amina slept that night in a small room that smelled like old books and incense. She dreamed of her mother's face, of her father's quiet smile, of the small house in Cade where life had been hard but at least she had been loved. When she woke in the morning, sunlight was streaming through the window and she could hear Mrs. Rahila humming in the kitchen. Her phone was buzzing with messages. Buyers following up. A journalist wanting an interview. The festival coordinator asking when she wanted to claim her land and workshop materials. And one message from a number she didn't recognize. It was Safia. The text was short.
"I'm sorry.
I was jealous. I was wrong. Congratulations." Amina stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back.
"Thank you.
I forgive you." She meant it. The next few weeks blurred together. Amina claimed her workshop space, a small structure on the outskirts of town that needed repairs but had good light and enough room for her materials. Mrs. Rahila helped her register a business, open a bank account, organize her contracts. The buyers came through. Orders poured in. Money started arriving, real money, more than Amina had ever seen in her life. She sent half of it to her parents in Cade. Her mother called, crying. Her father said 7 words. "I knew you would do something great." But the real moment came 3 months after the festival. Amina was working in her studio, teaching 2 younger girls how to weave beads into patterns, when someone knocked on the door. She looked up and nearly dropped the necklace she was holding. Madame Zainab stood in the doorway. She looked smaller somehow. Older. Her wrapper was neat but not expensive. Her face was drawn. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The 2 girls stopped working, sensing the tension. "Can we talk?" Madame Zainab finally asked. Privately? Amina told the girls to take a break. They hurried out, whispering to each other. When they were alone, Madame Zainab stepped inside and looked around the workshop. Her eyes moved over the shelves of materials, the finished pieces waiting to be shipped, the work table covered with projects in progress. You did well, she said quietly. Better than I thought possible. Is that why you're here? To tell me you were wrong?
No.
Madame Zainab's voice was steady. I came because the elders called a meeting. They want me to apologize publicly. To repair the family name. They say I treated you badly, and everyone knows it. And what do you say? Madame Zainab was silent for a long moment. I say I did what I thought was right. I say I tried to protect you from disappointment. But I also say that I was afraid. Afraid that if you succeeded, it would make me look like a fool. Afraid that people would question how I raised my own daughter. Afraid that you would outshine us all.
She paused.
And you did. Amina sat down slowly. What do you want from me, Auntie?
Nothing.
I just wanted to see with my own eyes if it was real. If you really built something lasting. And I see that you did. Madame Zainab moved toward the door, then stopped. I won't apologize for trying to teach you discipline. But I will say this. I underestimated you. And that was my mistake, not yours. She left without waiting for a response. Amina sat in the silence of her workshop, surrounded by her creations, and realized she wasn't angry anymore. Not at her aunt. Not at Safia. Not at anyone. Anger was heavy, and she was tired of carrying it. 3 years later, Amina's workshop had expanded into a full training center. She employed 15 women and trained dozens more. Her pieces were featured in galleries in Lagos and Abuja. International buyers placed orders. She built a house for her parents in Cade with running water and solar panels. She paid for her younger siblings' school fees. And every evening, she stood in her workshop and looked at the hands that everyone said were useless, the hands that created beauty from broken things, the hands that refused to stay buried. One afternoon, a young girl came to the workshop. She was thin and nervous, wearing clothes that had been washed too many times. Please, she said. I heard you train people. I want to learn. But I don't have money. Amina looked at her and saw herself 5 years earlier. What's your name? Hadiza. Well, Hadiza, let me tell you something. Talent isn't about money. It's about vision. And if you have vision, I'll teach you everything I know. The girl's face lit up like sunrise. Amina handed her an apron and led her to the work table. Let's start with wire bending. See these scraps? To most people, they're garbage. But to us, they're possibility. As Hadiza's hands began to move, clumsy at first but eager, Amina thought about the woman who had tried to bury her future and the teacher who had preserved it. She thought about destruction and creation, about cruelty and kindness, about hands that broke things and hands that built them. And she smiled. Because the best revenge wasn't anger or bitterness or proving her aunt wrong. The best revenge was this. Building something beautiful. Teaching the next generation. Turning pain into purpose. Being the person she needed when she was Hadiza's age. The hands they tried to break had become the hands that healed. If this story inspired you, show some love by hitting that like button and dropping a comment telling me about a time someone underestimated you. And make sure you're subscribed because we have more powerful stories coming your way. Remember, your dreams are not fantasies. Your talent is not rubbish. And the people who try to bury you don't know that you're a seed. Keep creating. Keep believing.
Keep shining.